Time is the master that forges nature at every moment, irreversible, without ever repeating itself. But speaking of time, it seems to be steady on Braila's land, where, tired of creating ceaselessly, time itself seems to endlessly regenerate. Entering Braila County, the Danube parts into three branches: the navigable Danube, the Vulture and the Machin branches. Almost all the fish species existing in the Danube can be found in this area. The small pool of Braila National Park is a place of special importance for the communities living around, being the ideal place of breeding of most fish species. It is a strictly protected region, offering the ideal background for fish breeding, protected by the anthropological impact during the reproduction period. Plant associations start appearing in spring, while in summer they reach maximum density. The willow and poplar woods represent the native element of the forest stock in the park. Over 60 species of sedentary birds and 147 species of migratory birds nest here. This is the perfect place for the great cormorant, little egret and grey heron to raise their chicks. The small pool of Braila National Park is a real paradise for all the bird species, and its swampy areas are now being discovered by people belonging to extremes. Researchers and visitors coming to study the existing species, but also uninvited guests, poachers. There are large stretches of water lilies and marsh flowers in the park, protected by law, real spots of color on the water surface during the summer months. Time does not exist here. The birds are witnesses of the life cycle, simple as it is, without any conditioning. The night heron, the grey heron and the great cormorant and all their sisters nesting in the dozens of willows are waiting for their offspring, a material and right proof of their existence. Due to the fact that the land of the park is subject to periods of flooding and then retirement, the two types of ecosystems, land and water, are interdependent, creating a biome specific to the Danube. At high flood, the terrestrial ecosystem will change into a water one, while in the periods of prolonged drought, the water ecosystems will be replaced by terrestrial ones. The grassy layer of the park is dominated by water-loving species. But there are also, besides willows, thickets of acacia, endangering the development of the local vegetation. The dry willow tree trunks on the banks seem to form a network of arms calling you to submerge into the magic nets of the Isle. Water supply for the interior pools comes from seasonal floods in spring and autumn. The level of water can lower quite a lot after water retirement, with the exception of a few pools that still preserve an optimum level for survival. Due to water retirement, whole populations of snails and shells remain behind, becoming a source of food for the birds in the park. When the water level starts decreasing, endangering thus the life of dozens of waterfowls, the administration of the small pool of Braila Natural Park steps in, shutting down the weir especially built for such situations, ensuring thus a minimum necessary of water in order to sustain these ecosystems. Still, in very dry summers, even these pools may lose all their water, passing from water to land ecosystems specific to the steppe region. The plants growing under the willows create a real thicket that hinders entrance to the pools. Grasses represent the main vegetation here, while the fauna is quite poor, being represented by invertebrates, mainly insects. Each corner here preserves its beauty and unequal individuality that neither floods nor the summer's scorching heat can spoil. As the lakes of the park are supplied with Danube water, most of them dry out when the water level is low, being replaced by large meadows. If it's spring, it is a time for mystery and legend, while if it's autumn, it is time for dry leaves whisper and wind whistle through the empty braided nests. Life here follows its natural course, passing through all its stages: birth, breeding, and death. In order to maintain the natural landscape of the park, strict conservation measures are needed to limit man's intervention, without visible exterior changes. These areas are used as nesting, feeding and resting places by the creatures living in the park. As we are in a wetland, the level of Danube water has a great influence on the current steppe landscape. The landscape of the small pool of Braila Natural Park is unaltered some 50%, while 30% is little changed and only 20% is greatly changed by man. The succession of seasons here only colors differently the landscape. Wherever you go, on the main branches, on channels and canals, clear water lakes or pools surrounded by the sleeping vegetation in winter, you are impressed by the unique image of this fragile world. The last autumn winds broke tree branches and created obstacles on the access channels to the pools. Still, the current frozen realm shelters both timid and vivid life. The abundance of reed and rush in the pools of the park ensures the necessary vital food for the birds, which probably call this place home. Braila Small Pool is a unique corner of nature, belonging to life, where water, land, plants and animals build up a whole. Majestic and absolute master of the ice realm, the white-tailed eagle is waiting calmly for the right moment to dive into a mortal attack. The colonies of thousands of wild ducks populate the pools of the park, now frozen, looking for shelter in this corner of nature that seems to belong only to them. Following the damming and draining of Braila's pool, the natural park remained the largest region to be flooded freely on the whole course of the Danube, making this territory the most important ornithological refuge on the old river after the Danube Delta. This seems to be the place where genesis is perpetual, while the symbiosis space-time is a perfect blend described by a continuous present. It is imperative for any intervention on the park not to imply a change of the landscape and to observe all its characteristics. Spring is the season of an unequal scene. Everything comes slowly back to life, while the place of the hoar frosts still covering the branches in the morning will be taken by the leaves that are waiting now to blow up from the buds. Located along the Danube between Giurgeni and Braila, the small pool of Braila National Park is easy to find. Once the two large Danubian pools, Jalomica and Braila, were dammed, the small pool of Braila remained the only functioning wetland that is flooded freely on the Romanian course of the Danube. The nests that were the homes of other bird species in winter now welcome their rightful tenants that had left in autumn. Spring is the season when the cormorants in wedding dresses breed, populating the dozens of nests that adorn the willows of the park. The winged master of the pool, the white-tailed eagle, has survived the dramatic tests he was submitted to by the violent storms of the winter. The tree where his nest had been was felled by the wind. The eagle has not given up his area and built another nest, where he will breed his offspring, not far from the old one destroyed by the storm. The air vibrates here due to the shrieks of egrets, herons, flossy ibises, seagulls, and many other species living together here like a large family. The richness of the bird species gives the sensation that they have all appeared here suddenly from nowhere. You are surprised at first by the delicate fluttering of wings, followed by the roar, almost frightening, of dozens of flights of birds. Most of the bird species find their shelter here, following the same natural life course, settled forever. The clear water surface is wrinkled by gulls, great and small grebes, and marsh terns that find here a resting and feeding place. It is a unique realm, a mysterious maze of ever-changing channels, which somehow has been preserved intact for such a long time. It is strange how the lakes are flat and clear today, of an unreal beauty, soon becoming dark and muddy, but getting clear later again, so that you have the impression that you visit a different place every day. The extensive sandbanks lend a kind of stability to this seemingly uncertain land. The woods are flooded, and the water seems not to wish to give up the land back. The access channel is flooded, the same like last spring and all the springs so far, while the water vegetation starts taking over, step by step, the surface of the water. The willow, osier, boxthorn and white poplar coppices have taken over the banks, while between the dunes there are tangled woods, which the natives call hasmak. Nature has chosen here the most beautiful and delicate colors. Plants with a sweet scent, according to the water laws which keep them alive. The small pool of Braila Natural Park is the last vestige from a large natural water ecosystem of a quaternary origin, formed by the clash between the Danube and the sea. Summer is the climax of water vegetation, the surface of the pools being entirely covered with marsh thistles. In order to get into this wonderful world of Braila small pool, you must first cross the Danube by boat up to Chiriloaia. Situated only 4 kilometers away from the city, the second Danube delta is still untouched, being under the rule of the bird colonies. He who once reaches here will wish to come back, having the sensation of not seeing everything, of living a real fairy tale for a few hours at the border of the unreal. This amazing landscape, situated between the navigable Danube and the Vulture branch, represents a wetland of international interest, being on the list of protected sites at the Ramsar Convention, belonging to the Nature 2000 network of protected areas at European level, both for habitats and for bird species. The life cycle in the region seems to be a divine metaphor. The willows feed with the sap of the marshy land seem to bear nests, which, in their turn, hide and swing whole generations of birds. The water birds find a variety of biotopes in the 3 types of water, amphibian and land habitats in the park, corresponding to the ecological requirements of each species. The small pool of Braila Natural Park has a lot to offer to those who love nature and wilderness, and it does it again and again with generosity. It will be an unforgettable place for those dreaming to escape the concrete walls of the cities, surrendering themselves to be taken through the green tunnels of the maze of channels in the pool. But the fascination of this region is the amazing diversity of species cohabiting in a strange harmony in this relatively narrow perimeter. Stepping cautiously through the thicket near a bird colony, you will have an odd sensation of time travel in another realm, totally unknown. Everything around seems to be a picture taken from a time when life appeared on Earth. And getting into this bewildering world has all the ingredients of a real adventure. A thrilling mixture of images and sounds you have never met so far. A land forgotten in time.
Proiectul Ecosistemul Chiriloaia, minunea verde de lângă Braila, este cofinanțat din Fondul European de Dezvoltare Regională prin Programul Operațional Sectorial Mediu. Investim în mediu, credem în viitor.